I see myself, I see Becky, Julia. That's three. I thought I
I'm
saw
here.
Bill Humphrey, right? Bill, that you?
Yes.
All right, so I see Bill Humphrey.
Councilor Greenberg is here.
Okay.
Hi, Maria's here.
Let's give it one more minute, see if. May the 13th, it's a regularly scheduled meeting of the Finance Committee. From the Finance Committee president, the start of the meeting is, I see Councilor Humphrey, Councilor Greenberg, Councilor Maliki, Councilor Grossman, and Councilor Gentile. And I believe I just saw Councilor Lipoff. So hopefully we have two more coming. All right, you got a lot on the agenda tonight. So the first item is 204-24, the comptroller transmitting the annual comprehensive financial report and external audit reports for the fiscal year ending June the 30th, 2023 for the city council review and acceptance. So when we're done with the presentation and questions and answers to the audit firm, I'll be asking for a motion to do just that, to accept what's being presented tonight, which comes down to three categories: the ACFA report, the single audit report, and the management letter. So that is the plan. I see we've been joined by Council Block and various people from the administration, which we'll introduce as we move along. So let me turn this over to Matt Hunt from Clifton Larson and Allen. Matt, is there people here from your firm that are going to be taking over, moving forward with the audit that you'd like to introduce?
Yes, and unfortunately, I don't. Oh, there we go. One of them was having video problems, but now we've popped on there. Hello, Matthew Hunt, CLA, Clifton Larson Allen. Great to be here tonight. So before I get into the audit summary, moving forward, the city is sick of me and wants to get rid of me. No, just kidding. We're going to have a new team moving forward for the city's audit. And so I'm happy to introduce the two leaders really of your new team. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Jim Piotrowski.
Thanks, Matt. Matt, can you hear me okay?
Can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I was having a little bit of technical difficulties. Again, Jim Piotrowski, I'm a principal with CLA. I was fortunate enough to serve the city previously in a managerial capacity a few years back during the audit, now taking over signer responsibilities on the audit moving forward and looking forward to working with the management team as well as everybody involved in the call. So thank you for having me. And with that, I'll turn it over to Stephanie, who's going to be joining us as well.
Hello, my name's Stephanie Jackson. I have not had the pleasure yet to work with the City of Newton, but I'm very excited for the opportunity. I'm based out of the downtown Boston office, and I've been with CLA for just about 6 years now. So I'll be the manager on the engagement, working directly with Jim and with all of you lovely folks. And I have been 100% focused on SLG my entire career at CLA. So looking forward to it.
Okay, well, thank you for taking the time to come tonight so we could meet you. You're more than welcome to stick around, but I wanted Matt to introduce you right off the bat in case you have other things to do this evening. But thank you for coming. Matt, it's all yours.
Okay. They hear enough from me throughout the day, so I wouldn't blame them if they'd like to depart. And I appreciate that you guys have a great team, by the way. You can't do any better than Jim and Stephanie. So with that said, I know you guys have a big agenda tonight, a lot of things going on. So I may be brief, been asked to be brief, but we can open it up for questions at any point in time, at the end, during, etc. So without further ado, I'm also going to pass on putting something on the screen. We're going to go high level with these reports. If people want me to pull something up, I can. So as Councilor Gentile mentioned, we have 3 reports to go over: ACFR, single audit, and management letter. So with the ACFR, starting off with that, primary thing to state is that our audit opinion on the ACFR, which is obviously very important, is an unmodified opinion that is the best opinion that you can receive in an audit of a financial statement. So that's first and foremost. The other things I'd like to go over on the financial statements is go over some of your key funds. So we're going to start off with general fund. And looking at your general fund balance, at the end of the year, it was about $116 million in total. But really the key number that we like to focus on within your general fund balance is what is referred to as unassigned fund balance. So that's fund balance without any restrictions or commitments, etc. That number was 82 million at the end of the year. That does include about $25 million of your rainy day stabilization fund. One thing that we like to measure with that number is how does that number, that $82 million number, how does it compare to your annual expenses? That's sort of a key ratio. Your bond rating agencies look at that ratio as well. So that ratio was 15.1%. That's a very healthy ratio. That's the best ratio that you've had within the past 6 years. You can look at your MD&A section of your ACFR, and it has a nice table giving you a 6-year history of your general fund. Moving on to some of your other key funds. So again, all good news in the general fund. Same thing with your enterprise funds. All of the enterprise funds, water, sewer, stormwater, all with healthy positive net positions, all with positive changes in net position for fiscal year 23. And the same goes as well, the same spot where you'll see all your enterprise funds in the ACFR. You'll also see your internal service funds, which are your self-insured funds for health insurance, workers' comp. Those are also in a positive net position. Now, during the year, there was a decrease in net position in those funds of about $2 million, but there's still a healthy amount of reserves at the end of the year. Last 2 key funds that I want to talk about in the ACFR are your pension trust fund and your OPEB trust fund. So looking at your pension trust fund, now keep in mind with your pension trust fund, that's reported as of 12/31/22, whereas all your other numbers are reported as of June 30, 23. So 12/31/22, if you recall, 2022 was not a very good year for the investment markets. So that's reflected in the financial statements. Still overall healthy net position of $474 million as of that time, but there was a $53 million decrease in net position for the year. That also impacted your net pension liability, which has obviously been discussed a lot over the years. That liability did go up from about $250 million to about $320 million. And really the direct cause of that, or the primary cause of that, is because of the investment markets and the poor investment returns during that year. That has a direct impact on that liability. On the other side with OPEB, your OPEB trust fund at the end of June 30, 23 was about $31 million. That actually experienced a $5.5 million increase. Keep in mind, it's on June 30, 2023, so the investment markets improved. So your OPEB liability wasn't impacted anywhere near as much as your pension liability. Still a large number, $676 million, but that's only about a $9 million increase from the previous year. So overall, taking a step back, the key funds within the city all really have positive results, positive reserves, positive net position, fund balance, etc. So that then leaves us, that is it with the ACFR. Again, we'll open up for questions, but just briefly, the 2 other reports. We'll start with single audit. Just taking a step back, the reason why the city needs what is referred to as a single audit, it's audit of your federal grants. The reason why is you're well above the threshold. If you spend more than $750,000 in federal grants, that's when the single audit kicks in. The city spent about $23 million in federal grants. As everybody knows, the federal grant activity has really skyrocketed over the past couple of years with COVID. So jumping into the report, we had to audit several federal grants as part of the single audit. Through that process, there were 4 findings. So we'll briefly go over those. 2 findings related to SPED. One of the findings for SPED is that one of the requirements is that every vendor that you pay with federal funds, you have to do what is called a suspension debarment check. You have to make sure that the vendors are not suspended or debarred from receiving federal funds. We identified in our testing that the vendor that we tested, documentation was not provided, that check was done. However, it does need to be made clear that vendor was not suspended or debarred, so there's no issue with that. It's really just a documentation issue and a common finding that we see a lot. The other finding with SPED related to payroll documentation. And what we identified is that while employees were signing various documentation related to time and effort, there also should be an added layer of somebody's supervisory and a managerial capacity also signing off on those time and effort reports. So those are the 2 findings for SPED. And then there were 2 findings for an additional grant that we did, the home grant. The 2 findings there, one related to subrecipient monitoring. So as part of the home program, a lot of the program funds are given to subrecipients, vendors that work within that program, but they're separate and distinct from the city. They're called subrecipients. You're required to do, the city's required to do monitoring procedures on those subrecipients. And what we identified is that there were a lot of the monitoring procedures done. For one of them, the documentation couldn't be provided, and for one of them, a managerial review signature could not be provided. Other finding with home is various inspections have to take place for some homes that are rehabbed, et cetera. And what we identified is that for one of the 9 inspections that we tested, it was just not done timely. It was done just not quite timely in accordance with the guidelines. Overall, big picture, when you're talking about all the different federal grants that the city manages, $23 million worth of funds, I consider these 4 findings to be A, common, B, benign, and also very easy to fix, easy to resolve. Last report, management letter. So the management letter this year, a little on the light side, which is good. That means the city's resolving management letter comments and they're taking care of them each year. The one key item in the management letter I want to point out is that every year the city asks us to do what we call special projects. And so they'll pick certain activities. The Finance Audit Advisory Committee will pick maybe certain activities that he wants to do a deeper dive on. This year, it was the NECP program, Early Childhood Program. And you can refer to the report for more details. But basically, what we came across is some areas for recommendations for improvement. Briefly, they hit on some of the areas for improvement were policies and procedures, just making sure they exist, just update them, add some things that are program specific, make sure you record refunds consistently, improving record retention. There were a couple of areas where we requested some documents. They weren't necessarily on file. The school and city both keep records on these activities. Just want to make sure that those there's a formal reconciliation process in place, and then just some improvements for some payroll approval procedures. Again, issues that overall benign, but best practice issues and things that I think, again, are easy to resolve. So again, sorry for being a little bit abrupt, but in the essence of giving you all time for your agenda, wanted to quickly give you the highlights of the report. So I'll open it up for questions now.
Okay, first I want to note that we have been joined by Councilors Bixby and Mickley, so we have a full committee. And I'll turn it over to members of the committee to see if you have any questions on any of the 3 areas that Matt highlighted. Of course, we do have, for the benefit of the public, we do have a subcommittee, which is the Financial Audit Subcommittee, which works on this with our auditors throughout the year. They got this report a few weeks ago and have, signed off on it, which is one of the reasons why we did this way, because we used to do all of the work in the Finance Committee, and now we're doing it, a lot of it in the subcommittee. Any questions? All right, I'm not seeing any questions. If there are none, can I get a report to accept the three items, the ACFA report, single audit report, and the management letter?
I'll move to accept them.
Okay, motion's made by Council Malachi. Any comments? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. And I'm sure they'll keep you busy, but it's
I'm
been a
done.
pleasure.
I'm done. I'm out. No, but you've got a great team, really. So it's been wonderful working with the city. Obviously, I'm sure I'll be doing other things maybe for the city over the years, but not the audit. So again, it's really been great. But you got a great team. You're in great hands.
Well, you may still get a question or two, so,
Well, possibly.
okay,
Thank you, Matt.
thanks.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Take care. Maureen, take care.
Okay, next item on the agenda is 190-24, Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to accept and expend a Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism state budget earmark grant in the amount of $50,000 for improvements at the Pellegrini Fieldhouse, something we've been hearing about the last few weeks. Who is going to present this item?
Good evening, Chair Gentile. I'm here to present for this.
Thank you.
So as is in your packet, I'm here tonight for the Pellegrini Fieldhouse, some building improvements that will be funded in part by a state grant. This was an FY24 earmark grant that we have received. I'm very grateful to have these funds. This project will be co-managed by Parks, Recreation and Culture as well as Public Buildings. Just to give a bit of an overview for the improvements, the funds would be going toward new windows and doors, painting inside in the gym, brick repointing, and the roof being redone. There's a flat roof improvements to that. Happy to answer any questions, and we're excited to get started. I know there has been a lot of discussion of this.
Council Greenberg.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. I was just wondering if there's a time frame for this work to begin, and I also want to thank Representative Long's office for this earmark. Thank you.
So I'm presenting tonight on behalf of Commissioner Morse, who apologizes he had to be at another meeting this evening. Councilor Greenberg, I do know that he has already has a contractor put together a scope of work. Pricing is being collected, and we'll be looking to meet with them soon to go over all the details for the work. I did not get a start date from him, but happy to reach back out to you maybe through an email as soon as I hear more.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Council Malachi?
Yeah, I just wondered, is this a roof that's worth putting solar on?
I can take that question forward as well. I don't know if anybody has any more information here on solar on the flat roof.
If I may, Mr. Chair, we will have Bill Ferguson with us later on this evening.
Yes.
So Malachi, he'll be able to answer that. But we do have 7 new projects that we're working on. I don't know that this is one of them, but Bill will be able to answer that for you later.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner, in one of the discussions that took place, I think it might have been when we were discussing the capital improvement plan, it was mentioned that that there's a lot of basketball that gets played there. A lot of it is senior basketball. And there was some questions raised about maybe some protective padding on the walls. And I just, maybe you could carry that back to Josh. I don't know if there's anything there now, but certainly under the baskets would be a good idea. And there's, as you know, there's a lot of products. So maybe that's something that could be added to the scope of work, because it can save some injuries, you know, if you trip and go into underneath the basket. So.
Sure, I'd be happy to bring that back to Commissioner Morse and see with our contractor what kind of options are available.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Greenberg, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move for approval, please.
Okay, motion to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes 8-0. Next item, 192-24. Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to transfer the sum of $85,000 Health and Humans from the account for Health and Human Services Clinical Health to the temporary staffing for nursing staff. This was reviewed and approved by Programs and Services last week by a vote of 6-0. Who's going to handle this one?
Hi, Chair Gentile, Linda Walsh from Newton HHS.
Hi, Linda. Nice to see you.
This is an item that will allow us, we still have school nurse openings. We still are having ongoing vacancies of our school nurses. It's a statewide issue of all nurses. School nurses in particular are difficult. So we use an agency, and this is to allow us to continue to use our personnel money, transfer that to the line item for us to be able to use an agency. This is not something we plan to do for much longer. We are trying everything we can to recruit and retain really great people, but it is a difficult time to try to find qualified school nurses. So I'm pleased that we have a really great staffing agency that works directly with our school nurse director to find people who have pediatric background, school nursing background. So it's necessary right now for us to do this, but hopefully not next year.
Okay. Are there any questions? Okay, I don't see any questions. Can I get a motion, please?
I'll move it.
Okay, Council Maliki has moved approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Linda.
Thanks very much.
197-24, Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to transfer the sum of $125,000 in the law department to the full-time salaries account, legal services. Programs and Services approved 6-0. I see that our city solicitor is here. So can I turn it over to you, Ms. Giuliani?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Gentile. Members of the committee, I'm here to support the request for transferring $125,000 from our salary line. Many of you know that a little over a year ago, we sadly lost an attorney in our office, Jeffrey Honig, who handled all of the labor relations negotiating as well as day-to-day labor relations dealings. We have been searching for someone to replace him and haven't found someone with the level of experience that we would like in the law department and for the city of Newton. We have hired an attorney who is handling the day-to-day advising on personnel matters, grievances and arbitrations, but we have retained outside counsel through Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and Lehane to handle the negotiation, and they're doing an excellent job for us in that regard. But we continue to need their services while we hunt for competent labor counsel attorney to bring into our office. So we're asking for this transfer to help fund the outside counsel expenses that we are utilizing while we search to bring all of the work in-house.
Okay, questions? Well, while you're thinking, maybe I'll ask a question, Miss. So, are you saying that we, in the past, have not had outside counsel in some way assisting us, particularly on labor matters and negotiations? It's always just been, well, in the past, Mr. Honig, which that seems like an awful lot of work for one individual.
Correct, Mr. Chair. Jeff handled the lion's share of all of the bargaining, of course, as part of the bargaining team with Maureen and our HR director and other folks, but Jeff handled a lot of the work, and it was with Jeff's urging that we brought on another attorney to assist him so that he wasn't handling all of this work. But unfortunately, at that same time, he passed away. So while he was handling the work, we very infrequently had outside counsel handling any of the bargaining, and he did it all.
Okay. So what's the plan for, for next fiscal year?
Well,
Are you still gonna try and do everything in-house, or are you planning on, money for at least some outside counsel help?
the preference is to bring it all in-house, and with two attorneys handling the day-to-day advising grievances and arbitrations, and then the bargaining, we would be in really good shape. But it's got to be the right, person. I really am trying to find someone that has a level of expertise to take on complex bargaining. And we just haven't found that person just yet. So my plan for the next fiscal year is to bring on someone new who can take on this work. So we won't need outside counsel other than, in extraordinary times or in a really complex or conflicted case.
Okay. I think that this firm at one time used to serve as counsel to the school committee, and especially with their negotiations.
I think that's right.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else have any questions?
No, we covered a lot of it in programs and services on the substantive side as opposed to the money side, so I don't have any questions.
Okay, want to make a motion?
Move approval.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving to page 2. Docket item 215-24, Her Honor the Mayor, requesting authorization to appropriate and expend the sum of $1,350,000 from the June 30th, 2023 certified free cash for fire rescue regular overtime. Chief?
Thank you, Counselor. We are looking for $1,350,000 to for our overtime to cover us through the end of this fiscal year. As we've discussed in the past, there's really two ways that the fire department incurs overtime costs. For us, 14 structure fires, including 12 working fires or above. But that being said, the actual bulk of the overtime costs are for minimum staffing. So minimum staffing is defined in our contract. We staff the ladder companies and the rescue companies with 4 personnel. We staff the engine companies with a minimum of 3 personnel for 9 months of the year, and then 3 months of the year we staff those engine companies with a minimum of 4. So we do have enough personnel to cover those, but when one of those individuals takes a vacation day or is out for a long-term or short-term injury or illness, we have to cover those positions with an overtime. That is where we incur most of the overtime costs. Assistant Chief will talk a little bit about our hiring process and where we are with that. And also, if you could, Chief, if you could touch on the injuries that we have at this time that are also part of why we have such a high overtime cost right now. You're on mute.
Michael, you're on mute, I think.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Currently, we have 5 vacancies. We are in the process of hiring 5 potential candidates to fill those vacancies. They're about halfway through the process now. My hope is to get them into an academy this summer. The academy is backed up, so we try to speed along this process as fast as we can. The quicker they can get in, obviously, the quicker we can get them on the trucks. With injuries, we currently have about 10 injuries right now. 3 or 4 of those are what I consider long-term injuries. The other 5 or 6 are more mid to short-term injuries. We expect 2 or 3 of those back within a month, which will also help. And it's a constant effort to try to work with these individuals and get them their doctor's appointments and get them back as soon as possible.
Okay.
Chief. So I appreciate the consideration on this item, and we certainly welcome any questions.
Okay. Questions? I'm assuming similar to the prior item that that the committee, public safety, spent a fair amount of time on this. Are there any questions? Council Maliki.
I guess for either the chief or deputy, is the number 10 out injured, is that kind of a typical level, or is that unusually high or unusually low?
I would say that it fluctuates. It's sometimes it drops a little bit below that, but I would say that's about average.
And is it typical that the people who are out, it's more injury related rather than sickness?
These are all injury related on duty injuries for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
You all set, Counselor?
Yep.
Anyone else? I had one thing from Maureen. I remember it wasn't very long that you were here when you started attacking our snow account and gradually have built it up over time because, you know, we at one point, most of the snow money was coming out of free cash. And you've worked hard to include more of it into, you know, our budget over the years. Are we not at that point with this particular line item? Because it seems like every year at this time of the year, you know, we're doing the same thing. The number fluctuates a little bit, but it's pretty consistent. I'm not even questioning, you know, the need. I understand what's going on, but it just seems as though maybe we should be funding overtime a little bit higher in the regular, you know, during the regular budget process.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I believe back when I started, we were funding overtime around either $600,000 or $800,000. In this year's budget, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, maybe Perry can look them up as I'm talking. I think we have at least 1.1 in regular overtime for fire rescue. And I want to say, I think this year we have overtime that's due to people who are on 111F up to 300,000. So we have been slowly increasing this number. And I would also think that we'll be taking a hard look at this account this summer. As you know, you approved allowing us to put 4 temporary positions in the fire department last year. We knew that we had several retirements that were pending. We are not necessarily sure that we will have as many retirements this coming year or the following year. We're going to see a drop off with that. And so what we may be able to do is take those funds that we had for the temporary firefighters and put that into overtime. The other thing that happens here from a numbers perspective, we have 5 vacancies and 10 people on 111F. If we were instead, if those numbers were flipped and we had 10 vacancies and 5 people on 111F, we would need much less overtime, because when someone is on 111F, we are paying that person, plus we're paying the person who's filling in for them. If a position is vacant, at least we're not paying somebody, so we take that all that money from the vacancy and we transfer it into the overtime line. So there's a lot of different pieces in the background to this. The good news is the number has definitely been coming down over the last couple of years. And as I said, and we're trying to attack it by increasing the number slowly but surely. So hopefully in next year's budget, you'll see even a greater increase.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none, can I get a motion, please?
I'll move it.
I'll move approval.
Okay. I'm gonna go with the chair of the committee. So Council Grossman has moved approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay,
Thank you,
next
Council.
item. Thank you, Chief. 219-24, Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to appropriate and expend the sum of $450,000 from the Comptroller's Snow and Ice budgeted reserves to the police patrol regular overtime. This passed in public safety 6-0. Who's here from the police department?
Actually, Mr. Chair, I don't see anyone. I'm happy to take this one and give you the explanation. And if I can answer all the questions, then you can dispose of it. Otherwise, if you need to hold it, we can do that. But I'm happy at least to give you the brief explanation.
I don't think it's going to change the outcome, but I still think there should be somebody here from the police department. So I'm going to ask if somebody would please, because we're in pretty good shape as far as the next couple of meetings. So hopefully we can get somebody from the police department then. Can I get a motion then? Can somebody please make a motion to hold?
I'll move hold.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor to hold, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the motion passes unanimously to hold. 222-24, Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to enter into a 5-year contract with a substitute staffing vendor for the Newton Public Schools. Mr. Hurley, I assume you're here for this?
I am, yes.
Please go right ahead.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Liam Hurley here. Nice to see you all. So this is a contract. I think you all know any contract beyond 3 years, we need to come and get your approval. We've got school committee approval and coming to you seeking this. This is a contract as it's simply put out there. We've done this for 5 years. The other places we've come to you for is our yellow bus transportation contract, and our food service vendor contract. And this is similar in that a substitute staffing company, this is actually a company that we contract with that provides staffing in our elementary and in some of our middle school buildings, not at our high school buildings. This is typically day-to-day staffing and sometimes upwards of 90 days if we've got some type of 90-day absence with a staff. So we went out to bid and we want to try to secure a vendor for at least 5 years. We think this would help us basically attract the vendors we've got. We're going to be basically analyzing the proposals that we get. And I think the 5 years, the feeling from Human Resources Department was that 5 years was going to attract a vendor to us and also help us basically manage the contract going forward. This is a commitment that they're making to us, staffing, about 60 to 70 staff in our buildings, sometimes 1 day at a time, 2 days at a time. It really helps us to have some continuity with this vendor going forward. So that's the approval to come to you looking for 5 years.
Did they typically cap the age for people that want to sign up?
No, we'd still take you. We would have any age. We really are looking. This is a type of position that is really difficult to find. If there's a certain point that somebody that the company deemed they would not be eligible to work for any reason, but we certainly don't want to prohibit anybody from if they were able to work and work with students, we want them to be able to do that.
So no age discrimination.
No, we do not want that.
That's how I started, 1974, October. So public schools gave me my start.
Okay.
Making money in the real world. Have you worked with this company? I didn't even know such companies existed, to tell you the truth. Have you worked with this? Or you don't know who's gonna, but have you?
Yes, we don't know.
Company?
Yeah, this is something we've been doing for probably the past 6 or 7 years. So we've had a couple of 3-year contracts. They've been vitally important for us versus us trying to hire day-to-day subs. We do have a model where we have some building subs in our building. They're building based, but it does not give us the flexibility to kind of have, if there's some absences at a particular building, we could try to send more of these staff members to those buildings. For us, these people are not on our payroll. It's a contracted rate that they charge us per day. The benefits, unemployment, insurance, we don't pay that. So it's just a contracted daily rate basically that they're bidding on. So it's worked. It's kind of a hybrid model for us, but I think it's worked well in terms of not having to take on. We would need serious management in terms of just the day-to-day sub calling, and then all those staff members being now employees of Newton Public Schools.
All right. I got to think about it. This is very interesting.
Okay.
I don't want to deal with any middle school kids, but I think I can handle some unruly third graders. No doubt about it. All right.
You're welcome.
Council Malachi.
I should know this. Is it one contract for the food and the staffing, or is it separate contracts?
That's a separate contract. So Whitson's is our food service management company, and that's going to a company called Chartwells. So we've just gone out to bid, and so a new company is going to be taking over as of July 1 called Chartwells.
Okay.
And you look up their website. It's called Compass Group. Is the parent organization? It's a large company, and this is a separate would be a separate entity or separate firm that we're looking at. We got a couple of bids. And certainly staffing, there's plenty of staffing type companies out there, and some of them specialize in this type of temporary staffing for schools. So it's certainly a business model that different different entities look at, and they can make money doing this as well.
Okay, yeah, because I had this sense of deja vu. So we approved you're doing the 5-year contract on the food part.
That's right.
That's a straight 5 years, right? They're guaranteed 5 years.
So for the food is a little bit interesting. So again, that is a totally separate contract and a totally separate vendor. Technically, and it's very prescribed by Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, DESE. It's technically a 1-year deal with 4 one-year options with our food service management company. And even with any of our contracts, we have the right to get out for good cause if we wanted to. But the DESI one, we actually have to, with Chartwells, we have to continue to renew each and every year. For some reason, so if for any reason we were not happy with any of our vendors, we would obviously, cancel that contract, give some notice, but we'd cancel that contract. So that's how the Chartwells contract works on the food services piece.
Okay, so that's why you're doing this one the same way?
This is, the benefit of this. The benefit of this is this would again help us attract better pricing, we believe. So a firm can come in, they can make a commitment to us that we're coming in. They're going to be going out. They're going to be doing a lot of outreach to a lot of human research, kind of outreach to find people, find candidates for us in this marketplace to come in and sub in our building.
So they're, even though it's subject to for renewals, they're assured that if they don't screw up, they don't hire sex offenders, they don't whatever, don't have no-shows, that they're going to have it for 5 years, so they can tell their people that. Is that the rationale?
Yes, and I'm sorry if I've confused this. So first of all, we make all of our vendors, they have SORI, CORI, and fingerprinting that they're required to do. That is a requirement. This contract is different, I apologize, than the Chartwells. Chartwells are a food service vendor. DESI requires the 1 plus the 4 one-year options. This is actually a 5-year contract, but we do have language that we can get out with cause, or basically any cause at any point. The benefit, though, is still that we would like to attract and retain a tenant, or retain a vendor that would like to stay with us for quite some time.
Oh, okay. So this one is actually a 5-year
It
contract.
is a straight 5. This is a straight 5-year
I
contract.
thought in the write-up I saw some reference to the one with extension.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. My mistake, I guess. All right. Thank you.
Council Bixby.
Thank you. So first question is this for all levels, or are we just doing this at elementary?
This is elementary and middle school, but not the high school. We do not have a kind of a model like that at the high school.
Okay. So Chair Gentile, you're out of at least having to sub for high schoolers. And second question is staffing. I mean, I remember not too long ago, there were calls out to parents and community members and all of that to step up. Are we finding that they're able to staff enough, or is that part of what we're looking for here, is people who can guarantee that more?
Yeah, we want to find a vendor. I mean, staffing, I think you just heard from the fire department, staffing in general is difficult, particularly kind of any job that is kind of a day-to-day type of job. So having another vendor that is in the business of marketing out to try to find people is beneficial to us. And certainly we've tried to be creative. We've tried to have some incentives for retired staff come back. We've worked with the union to look for that. But this would be a vendor that's dedicated, putting resources towards trying to find staff for our substitutes. And, we have absences with our current staff. So trying to fill those substitutes is an important thing. And, this has been something Newton's not alone in this as well.
For sure. Thank you.
Council Humphrey.
Thank you. I was just following up on Councilor Malaki's question, because I was looking at the documentation too, and maybe I'm not understanding, but I thought it was as Councilor Malaki had represented it, that the
yes, I'm sorry, I may have to look at this documentation. Right? Does it say the 1 plus it's 1 plus it's an option to renew each year?
yeah, in your letter you said I'm requesting a 5-year contract with an initial award year with the option of 4 additional years awarded as amendments upon satisfactory performance of the vendor.
Yes.
And then you've, in the previous page, same thing, and then the previous page from the mayor, same thing.
Yes, I'm thinking of something. I apologize. I'm thinking of our bus bid. Our bus bid is a 5-year, and this is the same. This is the same as Chartwells and our food services. So my apologies. So it is a 1 year with these renewals. So again, we've got the ability after a year, or even sooner if we wanted, to get out of this contract.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, anyone else have a question or a comment? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion, please?
I'll move.
Okay, motion to approve by Council Bixby. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's another school item. I don't know who's here for this one, but let's get into it here. 223-24, Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to appropriate and expend the sum of $13,597.21 from June 30th, 2023 certified free cash to the Newton Public Schools for funds collected from the FY23 Help See Textile Collection and Recycling.
I can take that, Councilor Gentile. So this is, if you're not aware, folks, we have these kind of large bins at a number of our school locations, and these are meant to collect, unwanted textiles. In FY23, we collected approximately $13,000. We've collected in FY24. FY24 is not done yet, but I think we're up almost more than $30,000. The purpose of this is to actually help us fund any kind of environmental sustainability initiatives that Newton Public Schools wants to do. As part of our recent contract with our teachers, we actually added what's called a Green Team stipend at each school. So the purpose of this stipend, or excuse me, of this payment is to go for potentially covering the cost of either that stipend or other sustainability initiatives. It's obviously not a huge amount of money, but we thought it was, this is something that other school districts do. You see them around in various locations. We have a lot of our staff, we have a lot of parents that are coming to these buildings. These are people bring their unwanted shoes, clothing. They pay us by the ton, and we get a check quarterly from this vendor. So it's from our perspective, kind of a positive in terms of generating revenue from these bins and from unwanted textiles to help fund basically recycling and sustainability initiatives. So that's the goal again in FY. So between FY23 and FY24, we're up almost around $40,000 in total. So again, it's not a huge amounts of money, but I think it's a small revenue source that we're proud of. That did take some work for us to install, try to finding the right location. And again, it's kind of a way for us to kind of support those initiatives. Mr. Ferguson, I see, is here in the audience as well, so I think he'd support. And we work very closely with Juanita Tribert, who's been unbelievable with us in terms of trying to find particularly ways to divert waste into the waste stream for the city of Newton. That's been a big piece. There's some percentages, I don't remember them, but there's some large percentages that of waste of textiles that actually end up in the trash. So obviously anything we can do to divert it is great, and then secondly, making money is even better. So that's it. And so that money would come into Newton Public Schools, and we would use it basically for some type of sustainability initiative that we've got, likely this Green Team stipend or some type of initiative. Maybe it's some signage around recycling or environmental cause.
Okay, Councilor Greenberg.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, Mr. Hurley, what kind of initiatives would this fund? What are some examples besides the ones you just named?
Sure. I mean, when we originally envisioned this was a number of years ago, and this has taken quite a bit of work, again, to actually find the right location. We had to work with DPW, Parks and Recreation, facilities, the principals. This could go for anything, even things like getting the right textile trash bins or in a recycling bin in our school. This could go for signage, kind of, recycle, here's recycling, here's this. This could go towards some type of composting initiatives that some of our schools are trying to do. The main one that we were specifically looking at, though, was trying to incentivize our staff with this Green Team stipend. I think we're getting some support from the DPW, from Juanita, in terms of she had some funding that she might be able to make available for a one-year trial. But the main goal, and there's a sustainability working group, kind of the original origin was to think about how can we sustain a stipend that is not from our operating budget, that would help us get a kind of a Green Team champion at each school. Certain schools have school, individuals that are certainly motivated, but we wanted to have kind of a Green Team champion that would work outside of their school hours to kind of work on any initiative that that we wanted to move on. So I think that's a combination of things. We certainly want to do that as well with their food service vendors. So there's a number of areas that I think we could focus on.
Okay, that's wonderful. I wholly support this program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council Maliki, is your hand up?
How many bins are at the schools now?
So we're upwards of about 18 bins. We don't have them at all the schools. There are a few schools that for a variety of reasons do not have a great location for it. Either, for example, Day Middle School down Minot Place is just an awkward spot. We don't want a lot of parents coming down there. We don't really want them potentially out on Albemarle right now. So we have a few more schools that we think that we could put them in. We have received some pushback sometimes from some residents. They may feel they're an eyesore. We've moved several of these due to some resident complaints. But we are approximately 18 of these bins are around the city.
Yeah, I think I remember complaints about Horace Mann's location or something.
Horace Mann was one. Mason Rice was one. We've just had to move it a little bit. So there's been a few, and again, because it's a change. If people have been used to seeing something and then seeing a bin, it's not always easy to get used to something like that, particularly if you're right there looking at a school every day.
So the funds that are collected in aggregate will be spread about among to try to get green team members at all the schools, even if they're a good spot for the bin.
That's right. Yeah. So we've had this green team stipend that we added as part of the contract has actually been incredibly big news for Newton Public Schools. There's a lot of energy around trying to do work on initiatives. So there is an annual stipend that we've added to the contract for that, and this would be basically to try to fund through all schools, all of high school down through elementary schools, a sustained green team stipend that would pay for that cost. So that's one of the goals of what we're looking to do.
And how much is the stipend?
Stipend is approximately $921
per year.
Per year.
So basically, if somebody takes their old clothes or fabrics to a school location, the money gets to the school system. If it goes to Rumford Ave, it gets to Juanita. Is that how it works?
Yeah, but if it ends up in the waste stream and the city of Newton is paying for it, and again, I think Juanita would be better to talk to it. There's actually a net cost to the city.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I think there's even some penalties if it even goes in there.
Oh, no, it's against the law, against state law now.
So it's got a benefit of trying to have these bins have got a benefit of trying to really divert that from the waste stream and get a little bit of money. Again, this is not major amounts of money, but we're looking for everything we can.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, can I get a motion, please?
I'll move it.
Okay, Council Maliki has moved the item. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. All right, last item before we get to a few budgets, 217-24. For honor the mayor requesting authorization to transfer the sum of $5,000 special election regular overtime for election seasonal wages for the purpose of funding additional salaries required for the presidential primary held on March the 5th, 2024. Okay. Who is Cassidy? Is this
Yep.
gonna be you?
Yep, so I'm here to present this item. So like it said in the docket language, this is for additional costs that we had during the March election. As it was stated in the backup, we send out about 50% of all the ballots to our residents. This obviously does create more work for our poll workers. We hire more poll workers during this time. It's especially with the presidential primary, we get a higher voter turnout. We'll see it again in September and November, but that's why we need to transfer this $5,000.
Okay, questions? Okay, can we get a motion?
I'll move it.
Council Maliki moves it. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions. Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, We have, 3 budgets to review. Assessing, financial services, and, the executive, including, sustainability. Before we get started, Council Malachi, do you have your budget book with you?
I do.
All right, I just realized I think I left mine out in my vehicle, so when it comes time to straw vote, can you make sure I have the right number that, for the particular department?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, so the first department is assessing. I see our boss there, Mr. Shaughnessy. Jim, what we've been doing is asking, it's your show. You can share with us whatever information you think is pertinent. People have been talking about goals that they had set for this year and feel that they have accomplished. Certainly, even if something hasn't been accomplished for some reason. And then going forward next year, what you might hope to attain. And of course, we're always interested if there are any changes in your staffing, or if there are particular line items that have either seen a large increase or a decrease for that matter. That's information that would be helpful to us, but anything else that you want. So it's all yours.
All right, thanks, welcome, thanks for having me here. First and foremost, the most important goal that our office has every year is to get our values approved by the Department of Revenue. Because if that doesn't happen, kind of everything else kind of falls apart. So that's our first goal. Fiscal 24 was a revaluation year, which means they come in with a lot of statistical tests, a lot of analysis, a lot of reports. They basically go over everything we do. We do it all in-house, and we got our approval, no problems, very easy, very early in the process. And that was the best news, was getting our values approved for fiscal year 24 by the Department of Revenue. After that, our main goal is always to be as helpful as we can to anybody who ever calls our office, comes into our office, has any questions of our office. And that entails maybe motor vehicle excise, elderly exemptions, personal exemptions, but just basic questions. It could be a quick example. I had someone come in Friday. She was looking for photographs of her driveway from 20 years ago, and we found them. So she was very happy with that. But I've always said this, that I'm sitting here for one simple reason, that with no offense to the staffs, the other offices, I think I have the best staff in the city. They go above and beyond every time anyone calls, anytime we need anything. We were down a person for probably over a year and a half, and everyone else stepped up and got everything done. So I can't say enough good things about what they do, which makes my job incredibly easy. So, we don't have our goals are probably the same every year, because we don't have we're not building any new senior centers. We're not building any new schools. We're just valuing the property and getting them approved by the Department of Revenue, and then talking to taxpayers who have any questions. As far as my budget line items, I don't think you're going to see any major significant changes. I think our non-salary line is about somewhere in $58,000 to $60,000, and they're all pretty consistent. So I don't see anything changing there. I don't anticipate any any personnel changes this year. We have one opening now for an assistant commercial assessor. The applications are not pouring in, but as soon as we get a qualified applicant, we'll probably fill that position and go from there. But the staff that we have now is tremendous. That's what I want to stress to everybody.
Okay, you all set?
That's it for me, but I'll take any questions you have.
Okay. Are there any questions from committee members or non-committee members? Council Malachi.
How long is the assistant commercial assessor position been?
She left in the middle of February to early March. So it's in the infancy, but in terms of filling city positions, being vacant for a month or so is not not a long time. It's, she took a job with a private industry. And so we started advertising it, I think around the end of March.
And I noticed that there's another vacancy in the appraisal technician. What does that job do?
That was filled. That one was filled.
Okay.
That was filled in between them when the budget was printed and when we're sitting here now.
Great, okay. And I was curious, I hadn't really thought about it before, but in your description, you noted that when properties go from taxable to tax exempt, they drop off the taxable basis, I guess. So is that basically an offset to the new growth then?
No, for example, if a property goes from taxable to exempt, that means that they no longer are subject to taxation under Massachusetts general laws, but the city doesn't lose any revenue from that. If whatever they were paying would then get spread out over the entire city to people who are all paying, but that doesn't happen we have maybe 4 or 5 properties of the year that go from taxable to exempt. And then conversely, I think we had 3 or 4 properties last year that sold from an exempt organization to taxable. A homeowner bought a church property. So it's, or a property that was being used for exempt purposes no longer being used by a tax exempt entity. So by law, we have to send them a tax bill. So those happen occasionally, but it's not, it's not a revenue up or down.
Okay, I see. Yeah. All right. I see the difference. And I was wondering also if it was a constant sort of in one direction, losing properties. Because it seems like some of the colleges are buying up a lot. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Greenberg.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Shaughnessy, I was just curious, what happens if the Department of Revenue does not approve your values?
Okay, that's, thankfully I know how it does it, and thankfully it's never happened in Newton. So let's say they don't approve the valuations in a timely manner. Then in theory, when the city went to mail out their third quarter bills, we couldn't mail out the third quarter bills without approval. So that would certainly impact the revenue coming into the city. And we have a funny term in our office that I would be guessing that if that happened, I would become embattled. That's always our favorite word. But I've seen, I know of a community that mailed out their tax bills for fiscal year 23 in halfway through fiscal year 2024. And that certainly was not good for the assessor there. It was not good for the town manager there. It was not good for anybody who was involved with it. Because now the town has to go out and borrow money to meet their payroll, meet their expenditures. And then borrowing money comes with interest costs. So it costs the community a lot of money if they do not get their values approved by the Department of Revenue. That's never happened in Newton. It's never been close to happening. It's never been on the radar. I talked to someone from the Department of Revenue last week, and I didn't ask them what community, but somebody just got their fiscal year 24 approval last week. Another community. So they didn't send out their third quarter bills or their fourth quarter bills for fiscal 24. That's never good. But that's not a possibility for us. So.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate all your hard work. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? It's your hand back up, Councilor Malachy?
It is, yeah. I had a couple other questions about the valuations. I noticed on the activity statistics, it looks like the number of inspections you were able to do went way up. Does that reflect anything in particular? Are you able to get into houses or whatever that you hadn't seen before?
Those are in both interior and exterior inspections, and like I say, that's the other staff members that really stepped up. And we can only ask, anytime we ask to visit a property, we only ask. So that homeowners, if they say no, give them a card and say, give us a call if you change your mind, but the residents are very receptive. They always, 999 out of 1,000 say, hello, welcome, come on in. They know that, for example, if they took a building permit out to double the size of their house, we want to make sure that we have the information accurately portrayed so that we give them a fair and accurate assessment. If we don't see it, now we're kind of estimating what they might have done. So it's certainly a benefit for everybody involved if we see what was done, as opposed to estimating what they might have done. So everybody was, out working hard, inspecting the properties. Everybody who pulls a building permit, we go. Plus, there's a reval year, so we went out and checked out a lot of other properties as well. We're doing that every year. We're doing hopefully 3,000 to 5,000 inspections a year. When the weather's good in the winter, we can get more. If we get, we get 200 inches of snow from, November to April, we better really catch up in May, June, and July. But, we're pretty consistent in that range.
And on the new growth, I guess a lot of that is these, the multiple condos or things like that. Are you using basically real estate listings to look at what things look like inside if you can't get inside?
If it's new construction, we kind of have an idea that it's brand new. So that's always helpful. If something sells and we aren't, and we try to get in, we can't get in, certainly we'll look at MLS, we'll look at any variety of sources of what's public information that's telling us what's out there. Again, if we see a house sell for $5 million and we don't get in, we can read the property description. And sometimes the brokers use certain language, or if we see something sell for 600,000, certain language kind of triggers us. For example, if you see waiting for your imagination, that usually means it needs to be bulldozed, waiting for your personal touch. That means you better come with a contractor. So that, there's different code words, but seeing them is always the best. And that, that's what's the best, is seeing what's out there. But new construction is pretty straightforward. It's brand new.
Yeah, I recently learned there's such a thing as $7,000 kitchen faucets. Does something like that get reflected in valuation somehow, or is it just, it's a very nice kitchen?
Something like that. The 7,000, again, what we do is market value, which is what a typical buyer and a typical seller would do. So if someone was willing to put a $7,000 faucet into their kitchen, it's probably they made some high-end choices for the rest of the stuff as well. So that would just be probably considered a high-end, a high-end kitchen. But just because someone spent it doesn't mean they would recover it in the market. For example, if I put down a solid gold floor in my bathroom and it cost me $500,000 for the floor, I may never recover that because nobody else is going to pay for that solid gold floor. So a specific person may have put it in, that may not have impacted market value. So, but for example, if you put a $7,000 faucet in your bathroom tomorrow, and that's the only thing you added to your bathroom, that probably wouldn't make your value go up at all, because if I go into your bathroom, I just want to make sure I can turn the water on, turn the water off. So that may be your personal choice, but I don't think that would be recovered in a market value transaction. If that beautiful brand new $7,000 faucet was then attached to the $20,000 vanity, the $50,000 marble floor, and everything else, then you may recover some of that. You may not recover all of it. A swimming pool is a good example. We've seen people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a swimming pool, but a lot of people, that may not translate into that full investment back in the market value.
Yeah, it could be a negative. And final question: you're taxing based on what properties are being used as. If are you capturing in any way properties being used as short-term rentals, even if they're not officially short-term rentals?
Well, and that's we know of them. The question is, does a short-term rental increase the value of a property? And we've never seen that. And for example, and I'm just to use your house as an example, if you rented out 3 of those rooms to to other people on a nightly, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. What's the difference if you rent out your house per month, per week, per year? And second, then when you go to sell your house, the person looking to buy your house may not want to rent it to anybody. And so your house would be marketed, listed, and sold as a single family. So, I mean, and in theory, anybody has the ability to rent a room to anybody they want right now, don't they? So the people taking short-term rentals doesn't increase the market value. We haven't seen.
I'm thinking more of the 2 families or the 3, you know, sometimes 3-unit properties or 4-unit properties that instead of being rented as apartments, some are, maybe more of them are being rented short term. And I guess the person who owns the property thinks they're bringing in more money that way.
And again, I don't, we haven't seen that translate into the market, especially when you mentioned 2 or 3 families. We have a lot of sales of 2 families, 3 families. And if we saw 9 2-families sell for $1.4 million and they're all similar, and then we saw one sell for 2.4, we would look and say, well, why did this one sell for $1 million more if they're all the same? You know, all the 2 families were down in Nonantum, and they all sold for $1.4 million and one sold for 2.4. But we haven't seen that translate in any of we haven't seen the market value increase or decrease based on short-term rental.
Okay, thank you very much.
Council Block.
Thank you, Chair. Just following up on Councilor Malice, is that something that gets influenced by, for example, whether somebody's renting out rooms or not?
When you say renting out rooms in a single family house, that's residential use.
Okay.
An apartment building is residential use.
Sure. And if someone's using a home office in a residence,
that's different. That's different. Now, there's no guarantee. So again, does someone running a home office out of their house, does that increase the value of their house? No, it does not. However, it does increase how it changes how it's taxed. And I'll use a quick numerical example. Let's say you had $1 million house. It was a ranch worth $1 million. And you were using 10% of your house to run that commercial business. Well, the $1 million value, again, if you were to sell that single family ranch, it's still only going to be worth $1 million. However, if you're using 10% of it to run a commercial venture, then 10% of that value, or $100,000, would be taxed at our commercial rate, and $900,000 would be taxed at the residential rate. So how it's taxed would be based upon if they're using it for a commercial use.
Sure. And so is that a difficult thing for you to keep track of?
No, not at all. No, because if they're running a business out of, if you're running a business and you're not telling anybody, you're not advertising, you're not having any customers, you're probably not going to be in business very long. So the tests we try to use are you advertising outside to the outside world that you're running a business from this property? Do you have a sign out front? Do you have a listing in the yellow pages? Do you have a listing on the internet? Do you have any type of customer traffic? You're a doctor, you're a psychiatrist, you're a lawyer, and you're seeing customers at your house. There's a separate dedicated entrance for people to come in and out. Or are you getting deliveries in and out? So most of the time, one of those criteria will tell us if there's a home business being used. And it's pretty easy because you see a sign on the front lawn saying, Randy Block, dentist. Okay, we know he's doing oral surgery in there. And then we'd ask you, okay, what part of the house you're using for your dental practice? Well, okay, it's a 3,000 square foot house and you're using a 300 square foot room in the basement. Okay, that's easy. 10%. No, it's not very hard at all.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else have a question? If not, Julia, can you
yes.
share with the committee what the recommended amount, recommended request is?
The request is $1,411,781.
Okay, so on a straw vote, can I get a motion to to approve that amount?
I'll move that we straw vote approve $1,411,781.
Okay, any other comments? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any in opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Mr. Shaughnessy, thank you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Next, financial services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As our manager of FP&A, so financial planning and analysis, Perry is going to present for this department.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I'm happy to be here. This is the fourth time that we're presenting the financial services budget. The Financial Services Department was first established as part of the FY22 budget process with the ultimate goal of professionalizing the financial infrastructure within and between the 22 different municipal departments within the city of Newton. So the Financial Services Department is made up of two separate departments, Financial Planning and Analysis, or FP&A, as well as our Payroll Department. Our Payroll Department is staffed by Allison Quach, who is the manager. She's been here for about 3 years. Along with her team, they're responsible for keeping the city operating behind the scenes by ensuring that every employee is paid both accurately and on time. Very important job. So just a few examples of what a month's worth of different payroll cycles would be. They may have 4 to 5 weekly payrolls, 2 semi-monthly school payrolls, a monthly payroll for those city employees who are paid monthly, as well as any off-cycle or special payrolls as needed. They're also responsible for running W-2s yearly, 1095-Cs, uploading unemployment data to the Mass DUA, as well as making sure that the city is following all payroll rules and regulations. Within financial planning, I am the manager. We also have Connor Roach as the senior financial analyst. He's been here for about 2 years. You may have seen him in our finance meetings. We also have a new addition to the team, Trevor Gehring. He just joined us. His first day was actually the night of the mayor's budget presentation. So he has had a crash course in the budget process. We also have an additional financial analyst vacancy that we are currently recruiting for. So hopefully we'll come back here next year with a fully staffed department. The major areas of focus for FP&A, there is the municipal budget in the spring, as well as the long-range financial forecast and capital improvement plan in the fall. Those are really our big areas of focus during the year. We also work with other municipal departments with providing accurate data and financial projections to assist them with making informed financial decisions. A few examples of different times when we've did that. This past year, after switching last year the city's health insurance to Blue Cross Blue Shield, we've since been working with Human Resources to build out our financial models for the Health Insurance Trust Fund and to monitor that. We've also been working with Public Works to continue to monitor our water and sewer consumption to assist with the yearly process of setting the rates within our water, sewer, and stormwater enterprise funds. This past year, I've also been working closely with HR, legal, and municipal departments with the collective bargaining negotiations with all of our municipal unions. And finally, FP&A is also responsible for working closely with the Treasury Department and comptrollers with the processing of our vendor payments and the implementation and execution of our new vendor payment system, PayModeX, which Treasurer Mendez actually spoke of during his budget hearing last month. That is everything that I have. I'd be happy for any questions.
Thank you, Perry. Questions? Council Maliki.
I was just wondering if you could talk a little more about the what you're tweaking or the improvements you're making to the new payment system.
So last year, when we implemented the system, we worked closely with the Treasury Department as well as with IT to ensure that the system was running functionally. Now we process our vendor payments twice a week, and it's working. We're still finding a few hiccups here and there in terms of maybe the way a vendor was set up in the system or a change that has to be made. And we work with treasury, comptrollers, and then also purchasing to make those tweaks so that the vendor process is a smooth process.
And I guess you might be adding new vendors and things like that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Council Mickley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to say thank you to you, Perry, and your whole team, your organization and assembly of this budget book, and all the planning that goes into it has been instrumental for all of our work over the past few weeks, and it's really impressive. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Question, comment? While folks are pondering, Julia, what is the request for this department?
Request for FY25, $789,369.
Okay. Before I ask for a straw vote, are there any other questions? Seeing none, can I get a motion for the amount that Council Malachi just shared with us?
So moved.
Okay, Council Lipoff moves approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Nice job, Perry. Thank you. Okay, last department is the executive department along with sustainability. Maureen, you're going to start us off?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes. You will see from the book, we've changed very little in the executive department this year. We have all of the same people. So we have the typical 3% increase in salaries. All of our controllables have been held flat, except for we increased in dues and subscriptions. We put a $7,500 line item in there for the U.S. Conference of Mayors that we had taken out for the last few years. We thought, every now and then the city ought to have a line item in case it's important in a particular year for our mayor to participate in the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And otherwise, the only financial changes are in health insurance. We actually had one person elect to take our health insurance this year who hadn't been before. So it's basically a flat budget. What I will say at the moment, though, because now you've heard from all the different financial departments, I want to say to you, I've been here 14 years now, never has this city, in my opinion, in my time here, had such a strong financial team as we do with Steve Curley, our comptroller, Ron Mendez in Treasury, Perry Rosenfield in FP&A, Jim Shaughnessy in assessing, and we are all helped by Joe Mulvey in IT. I think this is the strongest team in total that we've ever had. So I'm really quite excited as we have all of these conversations with all of you. What I'm going to do is turn it over to Bill Ferguson, Ann Berwick, our co-directors of sustainability, and Leora Silks, who is our energy coach. They are going to try to move fairly quickly to talk about all the fabulous things we're doing in sustainability. And then I'll come back at the end, and I am going to be more than happy, Mr. Chair, to field any questions that anybody might have on anything that you have heard during this budget process, seeing that this is the last night, that at least you have departments in front of you.
Okay, thank you. Mr.
Okay.
Ferguson.
I think we're, Chair Gentile, Leora Silks is going to open up for us, and then she'll be followed by myself and Ann Berwick.
Okay, Ms. Silks.
Good evening. Thank you very much. And to do a brief introduction to the climate team and the work that we're doing, I have two things to share. First is sort of an overview of the climate team being not just the three of us on this call this evening, but noting that there is work that is related to climate happening across departments across the city. And so part of the role of us as the climate and sustainability team is the staying on top of the work that is happening elsewhere, making sure that communication is happening between others, keeping track and keeping others updated, both city council and also the public at large, of everything that is happening that is related to climate. And part of that is that something that we are working on this year is thinking about the climate action plan as a whole, and we will be talking with the city council more about this as we move forward, but noting that our first climate action plan that was initially written in 2019 is dated through 2025. And so we're nearing that time of what happens post the first plan that is coming up upon the end of its date. So I'm sharing right now with everyone's screen is our draft. This is not conclusive. This is not published yet anywhere, but it's our review of things that are happening not just among the three of us joining the call this evening, but across the city on initiatives that are related to climate and just how much work is happening across the city related to addressing climate. The three of us on this call are dealing more specifically, especially with energy and buildings. And so we'll get into a little bit of more of that detail. I'll leave this up if you want to look at things in more detail. As this moves forward, as I said, this is still in somewhat of a draft form. There are certainly more things to add. There's wording that we probably want to change about some of these bullet points here. But this is kind of an overview of a lot is happening. We are in communication with a lot of the other departments as they are doing their work that is very much related to our overarching goal of, as we've stated as a city, our overarching goal of reaching net zero emissions, carbon neutrality by 2050. So then my role in particular is focused on reducing emissions from the residential sector. And so that is split into a few different pieces, but we're generally calling this the For Our Future campaign, which hopefully you've seen some of our flyers and posters about that. The For Our Future campaign is focused on 4 actions, that is weatherization, insulation, and air sealing, heating and cooling, and also other electrification of appliances. Renewable energy, whether that's solar on your roof, Newton Power Choice, or other programs to promote renewable energy across the region, and green transportation. And so we're providing a lot of outreach and communications to residents throughout the city and about those topics and how they can move forward. We're also doing, that is the name of my job, and we have a group of volunteers doing energy coaching, which is the one-on-one conversations with people about, this is exactly the scenario I am in, here is how to move forward with whether it's those projects or other sorts of home energy related topics. We've talked to, I should have looked at this number before getting on this call, somewhere between 500 or 600, we might have hit the 600 number, total energy coach consults since the program started in 2021. And the other sorts of pieces that need to happen to make this program run, of having relationships with vendors, going through formal RFQ processes, to have people to point to when someone says, okay, I am interested in weatherization or a heat pump, right? How do I move forward with that work? We have those answers and those connections with the industry to do so. And then the data tracking, which is a lot of working with inspectional services to know what is happening, and also with National Grid, Eversource, other places that we're getting data to know what sort of impact are we making and where can we continue to move forward even better. So that's a brief introduction of what I spend most of my time on. I'll turn it over to Mr. Ferguson to speak about his work.
Thank you, Leora. So Leora is focusing a lot of her time on existing small residential buildings, and you'll hear from Ann, and she's going to talk about how much time she spent on electrification for new construction. One of my priorities has been the development and adoption of a BERDO, which is a Building Emissions Reduction and Disclosure Ordinance, which covers large existing commercial buildings. So there are 293 commercial buildings that are over 20,000 square feet in the city of Newton. And they account for 23% of total emissions in the city. So Berto, the goal of Berto is to put a program in place that requires annual reporting and requires building owners to reduce their emissions to 0 by 2050. We have hired a consultant who's been excellent to provide us technical assistance. We've been working on this for over 2 years now. The consultant is Synapse, and they've been providing the technical assistance to us throughout this process. There's information on our website that we've updated today. So if you're interested in looking at the draft ordinance, which we now have a final draft ordinance that we posted on our website. There's also a list of covered buildings, and I've got to thank Jim Shaughnessy. He gave us a lot of assistance applying his database to our needs to identify the 293 buildings that are covered by Berto. So he was a great help on that. Moving on to another subject, I'm going to talk briefly about solar. Most of you know we have 18 operating solar projects on city properties in the city. We started building those projects in 2013, and those 18 projects are producing over 6 million kilowatt hours a year. I'm glad to say that after a long delay, we're going to be able to finish most of our phase 3 projects. We've entered into contracts for 7 projects that were previously approved by the city council that we haven't been able to make progress on, but we do have those 7 projects now under contract with new developers, and we will have a construction schedule to announce pretty soon on those 7 projects. I would also just finish up by adding, we have 7 additional projects that we're working on a letter of intent for. These are projects on top of the new Lincoln Elliott renovation. We're putting solar everywhere we can, on every roof we can. So we're looking at, of course, new construction. So Lincoln Elliott School, the Cooper Center. We're putting new roofs on Pierce School and Mason Rice School. So we're going to put solar on those new roofs, which are going on this summer. So those, our policy is to put solar on as many roofs as we can, as long as they're in good shape. So that kind of wraps up what I wanted to say. And I can turn it over to Ian.
Sure. Thank you very much. So, yeah, I want to just really thank both Bill and Leora, who could not be better colleagues, really hard workers, and always a pleasure to deal with. So I'm going to talk about 3 projects that I spend some time on, only one of which has non-staff budgetary implications. So let me do that first. And the 3 are Newton Power Choice, the electrification ordinance, and micro grants. So I'll talk about micro grants first. Micro grants, we give micro grants in response to, for a number of years, requests from various, mostly advocacy groups, sometimes students, sometimes city staff, school staff, teachers, suggestions for projects that they'd like to undertake, which require a small amount of money. They've asked the city for money. We didn't have a program to provide that. So we now have that program in combination with the Village Bank, which has also been an incredible pleasure to work with, and the city. And each of the 2 of us, the Village Bank and the city, contribute $2,500 a year to the program. So far, we've given a total of 6 grants, and 2 are under consideration. As grants, the smallest grant was $269, and the grants go up to $1,000. We have given grants to Newton School students, staff, Green Newton, the Newton Community Farm, among others. So I think that's been actually a really successful program. I want to touch really quickly on Newton Power Choice. There are no financial implications to the city other than staff time, that is me. On average, Newton Power Choice saves electric ratepayers money. That has been the case to date, although we never promised that. We want to emphasize to Newton electricity ratepayers that they are always better off with Newton Power Choice than with third-party electricity marketers, both in terms of cost and in terms of renewable content. And we were Newton, all of us who work on Newton Power Choice were very happy for several years to be able to say that no other city or town came close to us in terms of renewable content of, that is, like solar and wind, in our Newton Power Choice contracts. In fact, we are now at 95% as the standard or default renewable content. That means if you do nothing at all, you're signed up for Newton Power Choice at the standard or that default level. But I'm actually now pleased to say that we've been beaten by Arlington, whose default is now 100% renewable. And Arlington, folks there told me that they were inspired by Newton. So we're happy to have a competition going, and actually happy to be beaten for the moment. So let me then move on quickly to the electrification ordinance again. The implications at the moment for the city are staff time, that is me. And some of you have heard before about the electrification ordinance, which would allow Newton to participate in the so-called 10 communities program. The state passed a statute saying that 10 communities, and I won't go into how they were chosen, could actually pass an ordinance requiring all new construction and major renovations to be all electric. We needed that statutory provision in order to allow us to do that, because we're a home rule state and don't have the authority to do it without statutory authorization. So we're moving forward with that as well. And again, that's just a matter of of my time, staff time, mostly my time on that particular project. Happy to answer questions.
Okay, that's I think all of our presenters. So let me turn to the committee and see if there are questions from anybody that just presented. Councilor Mickley.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ann, Leora, William, for that great presentation overview. My question is about resiliency and the idea of having a chief resilience officer, whether you think budgeting for that would help advance resilience goals, specifically how we can think about dealing with the realities of climate change, flood mitigation, increasing the hot summers, hot temperatures, storms. So I guess the first part of the question is how we think about resiliency now. And the second is, if we had the budget for a chief resiliency officer, would that help us be more resilient and prepared?
Bill, unless you want to take that, I'm happy earlier.
Yeah, go ahead, Ann. I'll add everything I think needs to be added.
Yeah, no, actually the person who deals the most with, or one of the people who deal with the most with resiliency, and the person who's on our team, among many other teams actually, deals the most with resiliency is Jennifer Steele. So it's not as if we're ignoring that issue, quite the contrary. In fact, the first climate action plan, the 2019 climate action plan, treated resiliency as kind of a stepchild. And here we are 4 years later, and we know how important it is. And so our current plan is to include it in Climate Action Plan 2.0. But we're not coming to you at the moment looking for additional funding for resiliency.
Okay, thank you.
Council Maliki.
First, following up on that, I would have thought the person who sort of deals most with resiliency, at least with regard to the water, is Eric Hires. So, and I think of Jennifer Steele as being very busy with the Conservation Commission. How does Mr. Hires fit in?
Honestly, I don't know Mr. Hires. The person on our team who is most involved with by far the most involved with resiliency is Jennifer Steele. I'm sure, like all of us on the programs we deal with, each of us deals with a number of other people in city, a number of other city staff. So I'm sure Jennifer knows him well.
I mean, just from my experience, there seem to be so many flooding issues coming up. So that's a big issue. And I don't know, that's kind of a visible thing. The heat impacts, I think, aren't so easy to see on people's health. We don't really see physical evidence of that. But anyway, I did have a question for Mr. Ferguson.
Jonathan, did you want to jump in on this?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. Very quickly, just following up on that conversation right there, Jennifer Steele is our floodplain manager, and we'll be working with the council on updating our floodplain ordinances. Mr. Hires in engineering is our stormwater engineer and is working very closely with multiple departments, Parks and Rec and Public Buildings and others on stormwater improvements. So there are many people involved in resiliency. Councilor Mickley and I have had this conversation in the past. There's a whole team of us. We have a climate cluster. We have people working on different aspects of resiliency, whether they're in health and human services or they're in DPW and other departments. So it's a team effort. And I understand the point. Resiliency is incredibly important going forward while we work on the larger climate change issues. Thank you.
Okay, back to you, Council Maliki. I know you had another question.
For Mr. Ferguson, what are the 7 projects that are under contract for the Phase 3 solar? And I was curious, from an earlier item, was one of them going to be the Pellegrini Fieldhouse roof?
Well, no, Pellegrini is not on this list. The 7 that are under contract, the ones that were previously approved by the city council under Phase 3. You remember we had a developer that kind of dropped off.
Yeah.
But those, do you want me to read off those locations?
Yeah, if you could, real quick.
Yeah, so it's Angel Elementary School roof, Cabot School roof, Williams Elementary School roof, the Ed Center parking lot canopy, the Memorial Spalding Elementary School parking lot canopy, behind Brown Middle School canopy, and Wheeler Road lot canopy. So those are under contract, and we're working on construction schedules on those now. We do have a list. I'll just read through this really quickly. And we can add Pellegrini to this list. But right now we're looking at Bigelow Middle School roof, Countryside Elementary, the new school, Lincoln Elliott roof and canopy, Mason Rice roof. We're putting a new roof on, so we had ruled that out previously, but now it's in because we're getting a new roof. North High School, we had a section of roof where the solar panels were damaged during a storm. So we're going to replace those. Those are older panels. They were installed in 2010. We're looking at replacing those. Pierce Elementary School, that'll have a new roof, and we're looking at solar for that roof. And of course, New Cal or the Cooper Center will be putting solar in that building as well. So any building, any new building or any new roof, Josh wants to put solar on all of those types of situations. So so we have proposals for pretty much all of the 7 under the LOI, and we can look at Pellegrini as well. We may have looked at that before. I'm wondering if that building didn't have a good roof on it, but we can check that out. I'd be glad to do that.
Yeah, so apparently they're getting a new roof. I guess it also depends on how much weight it can hold as well as the.
Yeah, that's part of it as well, yeah.
Okay. And who is the new company that's not Macquarie?
We're using, actually, we're back to Amoresco, who's did the 18 that are operating now, and we have another vendor that will be putting solar on Williams School roof. So we're trying to develop a bigger bench, I guess, or a bench, because it seems like so far our success has only been when Amoresco is involved, and we think this Select is a good company, and they've been good to work with so far. So.
And I had a question also about the Berto, the goal being to have 0 emissions by 2050. So that's for existing buildings now that are over 20,000 square feet.
Correct. Commercial buildings. Correct.
Commercial.
Yep. Just 293 buildings.
Okay. How would they be expected to do that?
They're going to have to, at the end of life of their fossil fuel equipment, they're going to have to convert to heat pump equipment. And there's, yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So does that mean literally 0 emissions though, or just that the emissions are not in Newton?
It's going to be 0 emissions in this case.
So they'd be required to be all renewable.
Building owners will be expected to eliminate the use of fossil fuels in their buildings. There's an option for them, another pathway. We call it alternative compliance payment. So if they, for some reason, they can't do it or don't want to do it, there's an option to pay an alternative compliance payment. And that payment would go into a fund that would be available to help nonprofits and also the city to bring its buildings into compliance, and also to run the program, administer the program.
So basically they'd have to electrify, and would their electricity source also have to be from renewable?
We're not including electricity in our emission standard. It's only going to be direct fuels, on-site fuels. The reason for that is that state policies and programs, mandatory programs, will be achieving about 92% clean electricity in Massachusetts by 2032. So we decided not to address electricity because the state mandates and regulations are addressing that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Council Block.
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow up on Berto, my understanding is that it's excluding residential structures. Is that right? That we're following the Cambridge model as opposed to the Boston model?
Not exactly. We are deferring it 1 year. We are going to amend the ordinance in a year to include residential. Basically, for a couple of reasons. One is we're concerned that what happened in Cambridge could happen in Newton because there is some pushback from residential building owners. And basically to respond to that pushback, we want another year to finish some work we're doing, some studies we're doing, and analysis, and I think we'll be better prepared to introduce an amendment in a year that will address residential buildings over 20,000 square feet and condos and residential condos.
So will your analysis include trying to assess the financial impact on naturally affordable housing and tenants are
exactly
in structures like that? That's
yes.
That's another goal this city has besides the sustainability goals that you're working on.
Right. We want to make sure we're not overlooking the affordable housing needs of the city. And we're going to take an extra year to look at and understand impacts on low-income affordable housing, market rate housing. We're doing a case study of a market rate apartment building, and we're doing a couple of studies working with Newton Housing Authority and NCDF on low-income housing to try to understand what it's going to cost to comply with Alberto and those types of facilities, what types of incentives are available to especially to affordable housing. We're finding that there might be a pretty high level of incentive available for affordable housing, but it's not real clear yet. But through this work we're doing with Newton Housing Authority and NCDF, that's going to become clear, within, by next year for sure.
So look forward to hearing about your analysis. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Ann, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I did. Thank you. I just wanted to add that the electrification ordinance, the proposed electrification ordinance, which I've already talked about, excuse me, deals only with new construction and major renovations, which is when it's absolutely the easiest to address electrification. So we shouldn't be building new buildings that then are going to require retrofits, which, as we all know, at least on the commercial side, Berto will address, but new buildings are absolutely the low-hanging fruit. And, the buildings affected by Berto that's why Berto has, we're proposing 30 years for buildings to comply, is because it's much harder for in the retrofit situation.
Okay. Are there any other questions? I see no other hands. Council Maliki, can you give us the bottom line recommended budget?
Okay, I want to make sure I get everything here. So we have, okay, the total executive department, which includes executive and citizens assistants, the total of those is $1,461,808.
And is sustainability separated out?
I don't believe so. Maureen, can you?
No, it's all in that number.
Okay,
All right, can we have that? So that covers everything. Okay. Can we have that number again, please?
$1,461,808.
All right, so that is the recommended budget. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion is made by Council Humphrey. Any other discussion? Okay, let's vote. All of those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. That's all of our the business that is in front of us. I want to thank different staff members that showed up tonight to help us with explanations on their departments. Again, I appreciate finance 100% attendance. I appreciate that. Please keep in mind if you have any resolutions, whether it be the departments that we've reviewed or any other department, if we could get those in. Cassidy, are you collecting resolutions, or I mean, are you the best person to send them to, or does they go to Carol?
You can send them to Carol.
Send them to Carol? I'll let her know that you volunteered her. Yep. So if you have any resolutions on any department, please get them in, because we want to make sure that we discuss those all on Thursday night and get them into the mayor's office so they have time over the weekend to come up with responses. So but we'll get the word out on that as a reminder. Council Humphrey.
So is it your anticipation, just looking ahead, that this will not be wrapping up on Thursday night in a one shot? Because that occasionally I think happens, but you're assuming that we're going to go to the next week's sessions as well.
Yes, definitely, because I assume, I mean, honestly, it seems like, at least at this point, a quieter budget season than some that we have had in the past. I mean, I would attribute a lot of that to the work that we did earlier on the school stabilization fund. So that's what I'm seeing and hearing so far, but that doesn't mean that things won't change. But at the very least, I assume there'll be a few resolutions, which we will discuss on Thursday night, along with going through a lot of the department budgets. I expect to get through quite a few of those, again, because I'm not anticipating a lot of debate on them, but I could be wrong. Things could change, but we do need to discuss resolutions and get them to the mayor's office so they can offer responses. So we know we're going to have at least one more night, but I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't go to Wednesday. But we'll see. That'll be up to the council. If they want to wrap it up on Monday, you'll get no opposition from me. So, but we're definitely going to need at least a second night to resolve the resolutions that come in. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, thanks again, and we're adjourned for the evening, and I'll see you all at least by Thursday. Take care.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Bye.